Hi there, and welcome to the Daily Gardener, and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's November 7th, Winter's Day. Today we celebrate the landscape architect who left a mark on over 50 towns in the United States. We'll learn about the Botany Man who helped start the Sierra Club. And we'll hear beautiful words about the mists of November from two of the world's best nature writers. And we grow that garden library with the book written by the wife of the author of Stuart Little and Charlotte's Web. I'll talk about getting your outdoor rugs cleaned, and then we'll wrap things up with the story of an award-winning botanical writer who was once tutored by Nathaniel Lord Britton. But first, let's catch up on a few recent events. I shared a very nice video tutorial this week in the Facebook group. It was how to make a compost bin for next to nothing, and it was shared by Richard Spencer. I really liked the simplicity and functionality of the bin. It was made using pallets. It had a very nice, clean look, and I especially loved the swinging door. So go ahead and check that out if you have plans to do that, either now or in the spring. It's a great little step-by-step tutorial. And then Buckingham Nurseries shared some excellent hedge planting advice. It made me think of that saying, the best time to plant a tree, or a hedge in this case, was 20 years ago, and the second best time is now. And I thought their advice right out of the gate was spot on because they advise beginning your hedge with small, young plants. And they acknowledge that a lot of times people look at plants like that, whether you're talking about a small bare-rooted seedling or a transplant, and they're dismissive. They immediately gravitate to larger plants, and then they plant their hedge with those larger plants. But the point that this article makes is that if you use larger plants, you often end up with a hedge that's kind of choppy or gappy at the base. And they point out that larger plants are more expensive and they're more likely to fail than if you plant a smaller plant. Anyway, I'll let you read the rest of it for yourself, but it's a great article. It's from Buckingham Nurseries, and it's called Planting a New Hedge. Then finally, the English Garden shared 6 hardy annuals that you can sow in your garden right now for a beautiful spring and summer. Think California poppy, borage, love in a mist, calendula, clary sage, and I'd also add cornflower and larkspur. And again, these are hardy annuals that you can go out with your seed packets right now and sprinkle about the garden. And then you'll have all of these plants to enjoy in your 2020 garden. All right, before I forget, I want to make sure to announce today's book winner. This is a listener chosen from the Facebook group for the show. And today's winner is Kathy Brown. And Kathy, you win a copy of Tova Martin's The Garden in Every Sense and Season, which was our featured book on Monday. So go ahead and send me an email at jennifer@thedailygardener.org and just include your physical address, and we'll get a copy of Tova's book sent your way. So congratulations, Kathy. Now, if you'd like to win a book, or if you'd like to check out any of the curated articles that I share on the show, you're in luck, because I put all of it in the free Facebook group, the Daily Gardener Community. So there's no need to take notes or track down links. The next time you're in Facebook, just search for Daily Gardener Community and then request to join. I'd love to meet you in the group. Here's today's Brevities. We'll kick things off with a wish for a happy winter's day. In the Old English poem that was featured in the Anglo-Saxon Calendar, known as the Menologium, November 7th is considered to be the first day of winter, or Winter's Day. According to the poem, winter has 92 days, lasting from November 7th to February 6th. So, what do you know? We have 91 days to get through. And today is the birthday of the American landscape designer Warren H. Manning, who was born on this day in 1860. The day Manning was born, his father recorded the moment in his diary. He wrote, "At 5 minutes past 12 this morning, we had a son born to us. He is strong and healthy to all appearances. I set Hackett at work to dig the hole while I planted the elm tree to commemorate the day that our first child was born. I think that there should be a tree planted at the birth of every child so that in the after times it may be seen which is more useful." Manning's dad was undoubtedly proud of his son, who worked on design projects in almost every state in the country. Manning started out as an apprentice to Frederick Law Olmsted before going out on his own. Ultimately, Manning designed on all types of properties, from estates to golf courses and everything in between. All told, his portfolio included over 1,600 projects. One of the signature aspects of Manning's practice was promoting wild gardens. Wild gardens appealed to Manning because they were more affordable, at least initially, for his clients, compared to formal gardens. And adding wild spaces meant that Manning would generally get an opportunity to follow up on his projects, as most wild gardens need some fine-tuning. And then finally, many of Manning's private wild garden designs ended up becoming a gift to the community. That was sneaky. And Manning was always thrilled to see more natural areas transitioned into public spaces. The Birmingham artist and landscape architect Frank Hartley Anderson gave a moving tribute to Manning upon his death. He wrote, "50 other towns and cities today are better places to live because of the vision of Warren Manning. 1,100 communities, in part, were made pleasanter places through his 50 years of wholehearted service." And today is the anniversary of the death of the Botany Man, William Lynn Jepson, who died on this day in 1946. Carved on his tombstone are the following words: "Profound scholar, inspiring teacher, indefatigable botanical explorer. In the ordered beauty of nature, he found enduring communion." When Jepson was 25, he created the Sierra Club along with John Muir and Warren Olney. During Jepson's junior year at Berkeley, he decided to start a diary. His diaries became known as his field books. Like many botanists, Jepson was an archivist at heart, and he recorded everything, not just dates, but as much as he could. It was a practice that Jepson never abandoned, and it resulted in over 50 Jepson field books. In 1894, Jepson began to think seriously about creating a Flora of California. As long as he was working on the flora, Jepson thought he might as well create a herbarium, which he considered to be his legacy. And although Jepson often said he disliked common names for plants, he came up with many on his own. In fact, he once named a plant Mountain Misery after suffering the after effects of walking through it. By the early 1900s, automobiles were becoming mainstream, but Jepson warned, "You must still go afoot if a real botanist. No field botanist should become soft and travel only in an auto." Jepson had started numbering plants for his flora in 1899. His last specimen was number 27,571. It was the Salsola cali, a little plant commonly known as prickly Russian thistle. Jepson collected it on October 28, 1945. Earlier that year, Jepson suffered a heart attack when he attempted to cut down a dead almond tree on his ranch. Sadly, he never fully recovered, and on this day in 1946, Jepson passed away. Jepson impacted many botanists. One was Mary Bowerman, who was one of Jepson's doctoral students. She once wrote, "Little did I know 65 years ago that my senior project would become my life's work." And another botanist impacted by Jepson was George Dexter Butler. Butler's story is unusual. He was trained as a lawyer, but his real passion was botany. Yet he put his botanical efforts aside in order to help raise his family. But when he was 56, he passed by a bookstore in Oakland, California. The store had a copy of Jepson's Flora, and when he saw it, he realized his time to pursue botany had come. And the trigger was that little book written by Willis Lynn Jepson. And a year ago today, we said goodbye to Irvin M. Williams, who died on this day in 2018 at the age of 92. Williams served as the chief horticulturist at the White House from 1962 to 2008, becoming the longest-serving gardener in White House history. Williams helped develop the Rose Garden during the Kennedy administration, and he once said that the Marion bluegrass that made up the famous White House lawn was the best grass you can have. In unearthed words, today is the birthday of the poet Ruth Pitter, who was born on this day in 1897. As a gardener herself, Ruth had an excellent understanding of flowers. Pitter once shared that she liked to write her poetry only after she finished both her chores and her gardening. My favorite book by Pitter is called The Rude Potato. It's a very witty and entertaining collection of poems about gardens and gardeners. And here's a verse from Ruth Pitter about November from her 1941 book called The Diehards. All in November's soaking mist, we stand and prune the naked tree, while all our love and interest seem quenched in the blue-nosed misery. And on this day in 1855, Henry David Thoreau was writing about the November mist as well. He said, "Another drizzling day, as fine a mist as can fall. My thoughts are concentrated. I am all compact. The solitude is real, too, for the weather keeps other men at home. The mist is like a roof and walls over and around, and I walk with a domestic feeling. The world and my life are simplified. What now of Europe and Asia? It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Onward and Upward in the Garden by Catherine White. After Catherine separated from her first husband, she married E.B. White, who was the author of 3 beloved children's books, Stuart Little, Charlotte's Web, and The Trumpet of the Swan. In the early 1930s, Catherine and E.B. bought a farmhouse in North Brooklyn, Maine. By the end of the decade, they had moved there from New York. White began writing garden pieces for The New Yorker in 1958. Onward and Upward in the Garden was written in 1979, and it's her only book. It was edited and published posthumously by her husband. In fact, gardeners especially enjoy E.B. White's tenderly written preface to his gardener wife. And I'll read you a quick excerpt from it. The only moment in the year when Catherine actually got herself up for gardening was on the day in the fall that she had selected in advance for the laying out of the spring bulb garden, a crucial operation carefully charted and full of witchcraft. The bad weather did not deter Catherine. The hour had struck. The strategy of spring must be worked out according to plan. It must provide a bright mass of color in May, and it must also serve as a source of supply. Flowers could be stolen from it for the building of experimental centerpieces. Armed with a diagram and clipboard, Catherine would get into a shabby old Brooks raincoat, much too long for her, put on a little round wool hat, pull on a pair of overshoes, and proceed to the director's chair, a folding canvas thing that had been placed for her at the edge of the plot. There she would sit, hour after hour, in the wind and weather, while Henry Allen produced dozens of brown paper packages of new bulbs and a basket full of old ones, ready for the intricate internment. As the years went by and age overtook her, there was something comical yet touching in her bedraggled appearance on this awesome occasion. The small, hunched-over figure, her studied absorption in the implausible notion that there would be yet another spring, oblivious to the ending of her own days, which she knew perfectly well was near at hand, sitting there with her detailed chart under those dark skies in the dying October, calmly plotting the resurrection. Isn't that sweet? You can get a used copy of this book and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for just $3. Here's today's garden chore. Get your outdoor rugs cleaned. Sonny had an accident in the front room this week, and when the carpet cleaner arrived, I asked if they could clean the outdoor rugs and even the natural fibered welcome mat that I think is about 5 years old got a makeover with a quick professional clean. It was the perfect first step toward getting the house ready for the holidays. Next week is all about putting together containers and pots, and now it'll look even fresher with clean rugs underfoot. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. On this day in 1967, the Daily Times out of Salisbury, Maryland, reported the death of the botanist and author Norman Taylor, who died on November 5th. Taylor immigrated from England with his parents when he was a little boy. He was very sickly and was not able to stay in school. In his early 20s, Taylor was hired to work at the New York Botanical Garden by Nathaniel Lord Britton. It was a lucky break for Taylor, as Britton became his personal tutor in botany, and he took Taylor along on expeditions to the Caribbean. Taylor also worked as the curator of plants at the Brooklyn Botanic Garden. There, he came up with the idea of a garden dictionary, and his obituary in the Daily Times shared why Taylor considered it to be one of his greatest endeavors. Here's what it said. Besides writing over a dozen books and articles by the score on botany, Mr. Taylor is responsible for what he considered a terrific undertaking. This was the amount of work required in framing 33,000 botanical definitions for Webster's New International Dictionary, second edition. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced weekdays in lovely Maple Grove, Minnesota. You can find complete show notes over at thedailygardener.org, and be sure to share the show with your garden friends. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, and of course, Facebook. While you're over at Facebook, don't forget to join the Daily Gardener community. Just search for these 3 words, Daily Gardener Community. The group will pop right up, and then request to join. Finally, I want to thank my team at Podfly Productions, where my fabulous editor is Eric Begay. Have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow. Known as the Menologium, in the Old English poem that was featured in the Anglo-Saxon Calendar, known as the Menologium. In the Old English poem of the Anglo-Saxon Calendar, known as the Menologium.